Hello, good people of the internet. In today's episode, we'll be talking about three things that should be taught to every child out there, that should be included in every education system out there. Let's get into it. The first one in the series of learnings is the fact that every experience you will have throughout your life will be in the form of sine waves. It will have its ups and its downs, its crests and its troughs. You cannot have one without the other. So you will not always be happy, but by the same token, you will not always be sad too, right? You will not always like the ones that you love, but by the same token, you'll also not always dislike the ones that you hate. So you cannot have one without the other. And this is a fact of nature which I think if we forget, we tend to behave in manners that are almost funny, It's almost like we tend to force things to be way too permanent than they ever will be. So it can happen that, for example, metaphorically speaking, you want to hold water in your hand, right? And you're so bent on holding it permanently that you tend to clench your fist way too tight. And that actually makes almost all the water fall away. Rather, the only way to hold water in your hand is to make a cup, let the amount of water that is possible to be held here, and the amount of water that is flowing away, let it flow away. It's in its nature to flow away. That is how you should look at almost every experience that you have in life. So I think it is very important for everyone to understand this, that life and all the experiences, all the sensory experiences we'll have throughout our life will have its ups and downs, will have its crests and its troughs. And you know what? It's funny because this is something that almost everyone knows, but this is also something that almost everyone forgets when we are in the middle of mostly those downward experiences or even the upward experiences. And this forgetting, this non-remembrance of what we have learned, what we have experienced, is a part of this experience, is a part of the same learning, you see, because even this learning, even this experience, you have in the form of sine waves. So there will be times when you definitely remember this, and you will also act the way, you will also act in an equanimous way. But there will be times when you simply forget it, you do not remember. And that is okay, that is human. The second learning that I think should be imparted to everyone out there is the fact that we see the world as we are, not as the world is. This is something that I've talked about multiple times on my podcast, and I think this is such an important realization for everyone to have, at least at some stage in their life, that I think as early as possible, kids, children, teenagers should be made to realize that the perspectives that they hold to be true in their minds are just that, perspectives. There are other ways of looking at life. And that actually helps you realize a lot of things, It makes you realize that maybe the perspectives in your minds are what is limiting you from being the best you could be. It makes you realize that maybe someone else out there has a better perspective, has a different perspective, and their perspective might have some truth to it, might have some more utility to it even. So pay some attention to it. And it makes you realize most of all that the perspective in your mind is that, a perspective. It's an opinion. So rather than focusing too much on what is subjectively true for you, maybe you should try to seek objective truths, or at least try to seek what is subjectively true for others. And that helps you open up so many more possibilities, right? Now, before we get on to point number 3, I would want to note that this is a topic I believe that almost every adult out there has an opinion on, and I think all of those opinions are valued. So make sure you let me know in the comment section below what are your top things that you think should be a part of our education system. And of course, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into point number 3 now. The third learning that I think everyone should be aware of is based on that old quote from Henry David Thoreau. Every generation laughs at the old fashions, but follows religiously its own. And I think it is especially relevant in our day and age. I would want everyone to realize that not everyone from an older generation, or rather not everything from an older generation, is absolute garbage or oppressive or bad or biased. And by the same token, not everything from your current generation is absolutely amazingly progressive, good, or even unbiased for that matter. Now, this is almost an extension of what I talked about in point number 2, because if you're self aware, if you're aware of your own biases, this comes as almost a natural extension. But we live in a day and age where the tools at our disposal are confirming our biases and our beliefs to be objective truths. It just so happens that if you log on to social media, what you see is either the same opinions that you already hold or a mockery of the opposing opinions. And that leads to a lot of confirmation bias. And the degree to which this is happening with human beings in this day and age is unprecedented. I don't think it has ever happened before with any of our generations. And therefore, this generation especially needs to be made aware that not everything from its own minds, not everything from the current generation's minds is going to be absolute gold. So therefore, the level of discernment that we need to apply to anything that is coming from an older generation is the same that needs to be applied to anything coming from the current generation too. With this, we come to the end of today's episode. I think, like I mentioned before, the topic that I picked is something that every adult has very strong and differing opinions on. So I would be looking forward to hearing comments from you guys in the comment section below. Of course, that is if you're listening to this on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, leave me those comments, like the video, and share it with as many people as you can. And if you're listening to this on an audio platform, make sure you go on to the platform, leave the show a rating, and if possible, also leave us a review, because that is how it helps us reach more and more people with time. And I think I'll see you in the playground the next time. Until next time, peace out.